This is Masinloc School on the Air in collaboration with Servicion Putog Radio, DWSP 101.5 News FM. Our teacher broadcaster for this hour, Teacher Jojit M. Elemento of Bamban National High School. I believe the children are our future. Teach them well and let them lead the way. Show them all the beauty they possess inside. Give them a sense of pride to make it easier. Let the children's laughter remind us how we used to be. Everybody's searching for a hero. People need someone to look up to. I never found anyone who fulfilled my needs. A lonely place to be, and so I learned to depend on me. I decided long ago never to walk in anyone's shadow. If I fail, if I succeed, at least I live as I believe. No matter what they take from me, they can't take away my dignity. Because the greatest love of all, it's happening to me. I found the greatest love of all inside of me.
Good day, Masinloc! Good day to our active learners from grade 9. Welcome to another virtual learning experience, a discovery of new things in health education. This is your own air teacher, Teacher Jojit M. Elemento from Bamban National High School. Join me, learners, in this new episode of Learning Health as we learn the prevention of injury and violence, risk and protective factors related to intentional injuries, and ways to control it. At the end of this learning activity sheet, you are expected to: number 1, analyze the risk factors related to intentional injury. Number 2, identifies protective factors related to intentional injury. Number 3, demonstrate ways to prevent and control intentional injury. Risk factors are characteristics linked with youth violence, but they are not direct causes of youth violence. A combination of individual, relationship, community, and societal factors contribute to the risk of youth violence. Research on youth violence has increased our understanding of factors that make some populations more vulnerable to victimization and perpetration. Many risk factors for youth violence are linked to experiencing toxic stress or stress that is prolonged and repeated. Toxic stress can negatively change the brain development of children and youth. Toxic stress can result from issues like living in impoverished neighborhoods, experiencing food insecurity, experiencing racism, limited access to support and medical services, and living in homes with violence, mental health problems, substance abuse, and other instability. Protective factors may lessen the likelihood of youth violence, victimization, or perpetration. Identifying and understanding protective factors are equally as important as researching risk factors. Before we go further with our discussion, I just want to test your prior knowledge by answering the activity entitled Complete. How to do this? Complete the statement by supplying the correct answer listed inside the box. Write your answer in the blank provided for you. The words inside the box are suicide, extortion, para-suicide, gang and youth violence, domestic violence, fraternity, bullying, kidnapping, stalking, verbal abuse. Number 1. Blank is a form of cruelty that involves the use of words. These words are used to attack, control, and cause harm on another person. Number 2. Blank is taking away or forcefully moving persons against his or her will and holding him or her in unjust captivity. Number 3. Blank is a group of people with similar background, occupations, interests, or tastes. Number 4. Blank is defined as relatively tough, mostly street-based group of young people who regard themselves and may be seen by others as a group that engages in a range of criminals. 5. Blank is the act of using force or threats to force people to hand over their money or properties on favors. 6. Blank is a pattern of behavior that makes you feel afraid, nervous, harassed, or in danger. 7. Blank is an unwanted, aggressive behavior. The behavior is repeated and repeated over time. 8. Blank is the intentional taking of one's own life. 9. Blank is the act that includes physical assault, sexual, and verbal abuse. 10. Blank is a term in which a person does not intend to die. And now, it's about time to check your answers. How's your score? I think you are now ready with our discussion. At this point, I want you to listen with a poem entitled Daughter to Father by On.
Daughter to Father by On. Day by day, I walk. Night by night, I run. During the day, it's okay. By night, it's not near fun. I go to school with more bruises on me. Changing in the locker room, people say, Dang, look at your back, baby. I lie. Say it was another four-wheeler accident. Most believe, very few don't. Day past time, I made my daddy angry. I got thrown from the boat. What I ever did was a wonder. But I knew it was the alcohol that we left long ago. If we hadn't left and moved, my mom would be dead. Because for years, our family was hanging on by thread. I'm pathetic after what he's done. He wants nothing to do with me, fine. Because it's like a blaze of fire that's burned me to the third degree.
My dear students, Answer in a separate sheet of paper the following questions. Number 1. What did you feel about listening the poem? Why? Number 2. Could this really have happened? Why? Number 3. What would you do if you are the abused child in the poem? Why? And now, let's have a discussion. Intentional injuries are when a person brings harm to themselves or others on purpose. It has drawn the attention of public health practitioners as well as criminal justice officials. The reason is that injuries have emerged as one of the principal threats to the nation's health. These intentional injuries account for a surprisingly large portion of all injuries. Let us now learn the different risks and protective factors that are related to intentional injuries and the ways to prevent such injuries. According to Merriam-Webster's dictionary, risk factor means that something that increases risk or susceptibility. What are the different risk factors of intentional injury? Number 1, individual risk factor. A. History of violence. Victimization violence. Victimization is a broad construct bridging topics to include domestic violence, cybercrime, sexual assault, and even parenting. These are the common risk factors that may explain why victimization occurs and who is at greatest risk. Letter B. Attention deficits. Hyperactivity or learning disorders, psychological factors have always been a matter of interest in the field of injury research. Studies have shown that the injuries are associated in ADHD. It may be associated with burns, fractures, dental trauma, or traffic injuries. Letter C. Involvement with drugs, alcohol, or tobacco. The risk of intentional injury due to alcohol or other drug use prior to injury is analyzed that alcohol combination with other drugs may be more strongly associated with intentional injury than alcohol. Letter D. Low IQ and poor behavioral control. What is it? Low IQ in early adulthood were associated with subsequently increased risk of an intentional injury. Poor behavioral control are also risk factors that individuals have the most ability to modify, such as smoking, drugs, and alcohol. For letter E, high emotional distress. It is common to feel stress before or after crisis. Natural and human disaster can have a devastating impact on people's lives because they sometimes cause physical injury, damage to property, or loss of a home or employment. However, children and teens may last for weeks or even months and may influence with families and friends. Children and teens are vulnerable on those situations. Some of the warning signs are withdrawn to friends, unwilling to leave home, less interested in school, becoming aggressive, conflicts with parents, and high difficulty in concentrating, which may result to intentional injury. For letter F, exposure to violence and conflict with the family. A child who is exposed in violence has the high risk in intentional injury. Such factors are criminal history, childhood abuse, and poor parental behavior. Children who are exposed in this kind of situation are considered high risk of embarking on a life path that will lead to delinquent behavior and later can do intentional injury. Number 2. Family risk factors. A. Authoritarian child-rearing attitude. Authoritarian parenting style is characterized by high demand and low responsiveness. These parents has high expectation of their children, yet they provide a little feedback and nurturing. B. Harsh, inconsistent disciplinary practices. This kind of behavior were associated with inconsistent discipline and high risk of externalizing problems during adolescence years. Low parental involvement, low emotional attachment, low parental education and income, poor monitoring and supervision of the children. For C, fear and social risk factors. Associated with delinquent peers, it is an antisocial behavior with antisocial influence. These persons are engaged in deviant, dangerous behavior, involvements in gang activity, social rejection or bullying, lack of involvement in healthy activities, poor academic performance, school failure. For letter D, community risk factors. Diminished economic activities. It is a decline in economic activity. High concentrations of poor residents. Usual intention injury due to poor state of the person usually falls in depression and other mental illness. High level of transiency. Transiency is the condition where a person or family lives or works in one place for a short time. Because of this, persons usually are depressed and tend to do intentional injuries. Low community participation. Socially disorganized neighborhood. What are the protective factors related to intentional injury? Protective factors may lessen the likelihood of youth violence victimization or perpetration. Identifying and understanding protective factors are equally as important as researching risk factors. Number 1. Individual protective factors. Intolerant attitude toward deviance. High IQ. High grade point average as an indicator of high academic achievement. High educational aspirations. Positive social orientation. Popularity acknowledged by peers. Highly developed social skills or competencies. Highly developed skills for realistic planning and religious beliefs. Number 2. Family protective factors. Contentedness to family or adult outside the family. Ability to discuss problems with parents. Perceived parental expectations about school performance are high. Frequent shared activities with parents. Consistent presence of parents during at least one of the following: when awakening, when arriving home from school, at evening meal time, or when going to bed. Involvement in social activities. Parental or family use of constructive strategies for coping with problems. Provision of models or constructive coping. Number 3. Peer and social protective factors. Possession of effective relationships with those at school that are strong, close, and pro-socially oriented, commitment to school, an investment in school and in doing well at school, close relationship with non-deviant peers, membership in peer groups that do not condone antisocial behavior, involvement in pro-social activities, exposure to school climates with the following characteristics: intensive supervision, clear behavior rules, peer disciplinary methods, engagement of parents and teachers. What are the ways to prevent and control intentional injuries? Intentional injuries may be self-inflicted or caused by interpersonal violence, but they are preventable and controllable whatever type they are. Here are the list of intentional injuries, their causes, and the ways to prevent and control them. The following list enumerate the causes and methods of preventing intentional injury. Cause: depression or other mental illness, alcohol or drug abuse, family history or suicide or violence, physical illness, loneliness, exposure to the suicidal behavior of others, stressful life event, loss or grief. Prevention: knowledge of warning signs and ability to get help, identification of risk factors and increase of protective factors, healthy family relationships, family support, worthwhile activities like sports and crafts, healthy social relationships, open communication, education strategies for injury prevention. Interpersonal violence takes the form of child maltreatment, abuse of elders, homicide, and even acts of terror. Some of the causes of preventive measures against interpersonal violence are as follows. Cause: physical or emotional abuse, sexual abuse or neglect, deep-seated prejudice, extreme anger, social alienation, desire for violent revenge, psychiatric illness, precipitating social stress. Prevention: knowledge of appropriate parenting skills, education of parents about normal childhood behaviors, respect for elders, genuine love, enhanced social responsibility, psychiatric efforts, research, cultural consideration, media responsibility, moral boosters. The best way to prevent and control intentional injuries would be to shun violence and self-harm. Avoid suffering in silence. Seek help from trusted individuals and health professionals. In the end, it is your personal choice to live your life to the fullest and prevent this negative behavior to foster on your mind and heart. Life is short and must be valued. There is only one life to live. The gift of life is one to be grateful for. There you have it, my dear students, our discussion about the prevention of injury and violence, risk and protective factors related to intentional injuries, and ways to control it. Before we end, I have prepared some tasks or activities for you to answer. Are you ready? For the first activity, as a student, what can you advise on the situation? Write your answer on the space provided in your self-learning module. Number 1. Ed and Nikki have been friends for years. and finally decide to go on a date. After having a few drinks, they go back to Nikki's apartment and begin kissing on her bed. Nikki is quite intoxicated but tells Ed that she doesn't want things to go any further. Ed throws Nikki back on the bed, hikes up her dress, and forcefully penetrates her against her will. Number 2. Marcus' parents have high expectation on him, especially on his sport. His parents were focused on her trainings and activities. His parents dream someday that Marcus would end as a national athlete. Deep inside of Marcus, he don't want to become an athlete, yet he wants to become a gamer in video games. Things got worse when Marcus ended up losing in his games in sports. His parents would yell at him, grounded to see his friends and not allowed to use his Xbox. Number 3. SSA dated Jason for about 3 months before deciding to end the relationship. Jason did not take the news well and continues to secretly follow SSA, taking pictures of her everywhere that she goes and sending them to her in threatening letters. He also calls SSA at work numerous times a day and hangs up on her. Good job, guys! You are all amazing! That ends our lesson for this hour. Again, this is Teacher Jojit M. Elemento. Thank you for staying tuned. Always remember, develop a passion for learning. If you do, you will never cease to grow. Goodbye and keep safe, everyone.
Isip mo'y litong-lito sa mga panahon nais mong malimot. Bakit ba bumabalakid ang iyong mundo? Inagalawan, ang buhay ay sadyang ganyan. Suliranin, di mapigilan, tanim mo lang sa iyong puso. Kaya mo yan. Pagkabigot, alinlangan, gumugulo sa isipan. Mga pagsubok lamang yan. Huwag mong itigil ang laban. Huwag mong isuko at iyong labanan. Huwag mong isipin ikaw lamang ang may madilim na kapalaran. Ika'y hindi tatalikuran ng ating Ama na siyang lumikha. Hindi lang ikaw ang nagdurusa at hindi lang ikaw ang lumuluha. Masakit mo'y may katapusan, kaya mo yan. Pagkabigot, alinlangan, gumugulo sa isipan. Mga pagsubok